Infinite Frontier, issue 3, Joshua Williamson, and 4 different artists, which I'm not going to name because I didn't write them down because it was 4 artists. This is the. I appreciated the kind of recap page at the start, which is the newspaper headlines, just to give you like a here's the main things that were going on, just so you refresh your memory and all the main things. But this is kind of in line with the previous issues. Fairly enjoyable. I like what it's poking at in the greater DCU. It's still fairly fragmented, although a few of the stories do converge here as they go on, as we kind of expected them to. We start the issue with Alan Scott and Obsidian looking through the various and confronting the various villains of the GSA, many of whom I'm recognizing. I won't say I recognize all of them, but most of them I do. Icicle's there, you got Johnny Sorrow, obviously they end up with the Shade, who is quite happy to just give them some advice, and perhaps suggest that the villains are actually more related to Obsidian and Jade rather than, Alan Scott's generation. So that sends
Makes sense.
Yeah, sends them off in a direction. Then we cut to Roy, who's basically, he sees that his daughter's alive because of the ring and the life and death power of it all.
Yeah.
So
the whole Black Lanternness.
Yeah. But the ring takes him to space, and he's like, shit, I'm in space. So he tries to construct a ship, doesn't work though. There's a bright light.
I don't think it's that it doesn't work. I think it's that he decides, actually, I don't really know how to use this ring. I'm not going to do that.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no, last time there was a zombie.
I think it was the little puff of the ring made it look to me like he was out of gas.
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
I can see why you'd think that.
Yeah. But a blinding light kind of shows up, and he's like, what's this? Speak of the devil. And that's kind of a little mini cliffhanger for later. And it does kind of neatly tie into something else when it gets there.
I think this was a really nice transition with the fade to white and then into the new Earth, and that shot of the Earth looks really nice. Yeah,
if it wasn't for the big Earth 22 caption, you might actually think this was what he was seeing, like a planet just appeared in front of him because of the blinding light.
Yeah.
But this is actually cutting to Magog fighting Justice Incarnate. And he's particularly upset with the idea of Flashpoint Batman because he's rife with like multiversal like corruption nonsense because he's not supposed to exist. But it turns out he is actually a reformed version of Magog, and he's quite understanding once the Justice Incarnate show up. They have a bit of a standoff, and he's like, "Okay, you want to search this ship because it's like the answer to all your mysteries, then fine. But once you've done that, get the hell off my planet. Go back to your own universe.
My Earth, specifically."
Yes. But basically, I think it's Flashpoint Batman says, Barry Allen, he goes on about frequencies and vibrations and all that. So theoretically, this ship, if it's from any one of our Earths, it should react to our touch. So they all touch it, all the members of the Incarnate. And sure enough, it's President Superman who gets a reaction and says, well, I guess we're going back to my my home planet.
The only thing weird about this logic to me, and maybe you can defend it better, and I'm overthinking it, it's Barry could feel vibrations.
Yes.
Of what world he was in. I thought that was due to his, Speed Force Pro. Not just, well, anyone can sense them.
Yeah, I guess my logic for this is probably that because it's a multiversal traveling ship, that means that anyone, because Barry, like, obviously if we touch something from our Earth, we don't feel anything, I mean, this is a bad example. It's a phone, it might literally vibrate, but but anything else. That'd have been timing. See if that vibrated when I picked that up.
That would have been gold.
But I admit I'm kind of reaching for this a little bit, though. I don't think this is necessarily overly explained. I'm just kind of...
Don't get me wrong, it's not like a huge deal. I'm not really bothered by it, but I did think about it as I was reading it. Like, this feels like a leap to move the plot forward rather than anything actually organic.
Yeah, it just kind of comes out, and it does tie into things Barry has said. But like you say, like, this works for anyone.
I'm kind of thinking from The Force Awakens, where it's like that's not how the Force works. Like, that's kind of the feeling I had. Like, someone should just turn to Thomas Wayne and go, that's not how this works. But they're all just like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's give it a try, and yeah, it just does.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to work. I was kind of expecting them all to be like, well, that didn't work. But then President Superman gets a reaction. I'm like, oh, I guess it did work. So
yeah,
yeah, it is what it is. Like I say, my guess is that because it's a ship that was traveling through the multiverse, that it has a connection to anyone from its planet of origin, and that's what I'll stick to until they tell me otherwise. And it's a bit weak, but we'll go with it. Then we go to classic art, as we have Barry running with Jay in a very old school kind of, maybe the first instance of him like crossing over to Earth 2, or running
really
his
nice page.
Yeah, it's a really nice page. It's a really nice.
I love the touch how like they went out of the way to make the page look yellowed as well, like it's on that old sort of paper.
Yeah, it's a good representation of an old comic book, especially the time period it's harkening back to. And of course, we reveal that this is actually what Psycho Pirate's making him see as he's in the big cosmic hamster wheel, I'm going to call it.
Yep.
So anyway, he monologues a little bit as he's talking to Barry, and obviously he's up to no good. And Barry's like thinking he's seeing someone in front of him saying help, and he's obviously, it's all manipulation. It's just Psycho Pirate messing with him. Whatever their goal is with Barry and what they're trying to fuel with his Speed Force energy. I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yes.
You assume it's crisisy things because it usually is.
I would assume so. And then Psycho Pirate actually says, "Run, Barry, run," and I laughed, just because that phrase has been ruined.
Yes. Of course, yeah. Also, just the idea, because he even talks about the first time anyone ever transferred over to another multiverse or another universe, it was you. You did it first, and that kind of all the crises that ever happened, they're kind of your fault. Because you kind of lit that spark.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He did die for his sins, at least.
He did.
Once upon a time.
He literally died for his sins. Yes, that's true. So it's played upon DC history, which is, it's neat. It does feel like it is trying to be a modern crisis-y style feeling thing. So then we cut back to Alan Scott and Todd. Todd's hunch is to go to Command D. The DEO is now running it. They use his powers to sneak in there because all stealth-like, and they find what appears to be they find Bones as well. They see Bones stomping around, but they find a ship which appears to be a multiversal ship. And we never get a good look at the one that crashed, right? Like a full view of it, so we don't know if it's the same style.
Bits. Because obviously that's the whole idea, is it isn't a full ship, it broke up a lot, right?
Well, the reason why I say this is because there's a couple of hints here that it is the same. One, the fact that they're building ships they can do this, but two, later on when we're on the ship, one of the villains says, "Oh, Bones will kill us if we wreck another one." So there's kind of a heavy implication that this is the same ship that's
which led to it being interesting, because again I also reached that conclusion with that line. I thought, well, if this is the DEO, our DEO, and Bones building these ships, and they're the ones that lost it, why did it react to Earth 23 Superman as if it's from that Earth? Are there multiple Boneses and DEOs all doing this?
That's the first thought I had, was multiple DEOs and different Earths building ships, or it could be that material needed to build this ship has to come from Earth
23,
yeah, the one that President Superman's from. So I mean, it could be a couple of things like that, but there's like prison cells which they notice, so that makes them kind of get angry. But then, whoever this villain is jumps out. And
Extract. This is the one that went after Roy in the first issue.
Ah, you're right. She jumps out and starts a fight with him. So it's kind of actually fun seeing them fight together here, because you've got the Green Lantern constructs, but then you've got the Shadow constructs, and it's kind of interesting having them fight side by side with the different colors of constructs.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen different types of lanterns fight together before. It's not a completely new thing, but I think that because the shadows and just that pitch black kind of nature.
It's like the absence of light. It's different to even the Black Lantern stuff. It's different to anything, right?
Yeah, it has a different feel to it, because like you say, it's the absence of light rather than the creation of light. But no, it's cool stuff. But here's where things get weird, because Agent Chase shows up, although I presume not Agent Chase of Our Earth, since she clearly died in the last issue. even what she's wearing in the sunglasses make her feel like a slightly different version of the character as opposed to the Chase we were looking at from before.
Yeah, which presumably lends credence to the idea of different universes, DEOs working together.
Yeah, for sure. And it might even be a case of the Chase that was on Earth that died last time wasn't the Chase from our Earth in the first place.
It's possible. I would assume until otherwise.
Yeah,
thought that was ours. There was enough stuff there about relationships with characters. Even the stuff with that Captain Atom implied that no, this was our Chase. That this was the baseline.
I will say something weird though. Well, not weird, but I think this page where this Chase shows up with the big cannon thing might be the worst page of art in the book. Alan's face, I think her overall just kind of like really long legs kind of perspective, everything about it just looks a bit wonky to me. Obviously, there's 4 artists, so it's very up and down. There's some really good pages in this, and then there's some really mediocre
It's a mixed
pages.
bag on art, isn't it? Where it's rarely bad. Like I say, that's the worst of it, but it's not horrific. Lots of it is quite good. It doesn't really mesh together that well. It's always pretty distinctive when you have a different artist, and you kind of feel it pretty regularly. Yeah,
that classic Flash page is obviously works really well because it is supposed to be so different. Like it's going for that jarring change because you're going, well, where are we now? And it's like, oh, so it's his memories in his head, and it's using the classic art to kind of mimic that time period. And it's like, okay, that's really smart. That works. But the rest of it just does kind of feel like it's not supposed to be this different. And then we cut to this ship in space, and now again, I was questioning, like, I'm not sure if it's the exact same ship we just saw in the base, or if this is just another ship that's already launched. Because obviously Alan and Todd think that Jade might be in the ship they're looking at, but it's entirely possible they were already launched into this space with this ship that's already there. Because this is the ship that picked up Roy, because we see Roy talking to, well, it says Agent Hammond at first, but it becomes clear very quickly this is Hector Hammond, who is now back to normal human status.
Yes. I appreciate that, Roy didn't pick up on it immediately, and neither did I, because this isn't what we're used to seeing Hammond look like.
He doesn't have a huge head.
yeah. So we're not looking at this going, oh yeah, that's Hammond. Even when we see the name, you just go, okay, someone else has got the name, fine. There's no reason to link them.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I read Agent Hammond. I went, Agent Hammond. Should I know who Agent Hammond is? It sounds familiar,
especially when they put it in bold.
Yeah, but I was like, I don't know, maybe not. And then it got to the reveal, and I was like, you smart bastards.
Well, that's clever.
It's one of those things where obviously it's like, okay, the recent multiverse like reset and everything that's been going on. He got a reset here, and that's why he's back to being a normal human, more or less. But he's being all nice to Roy at first, and basically their whole task is monitoring the threat of, they don't monitor threats in space now, they monitor threats coming from other universities, and that includes people who come back from the dead. So they whip out some fancy cannons, like sonic cannons, that stop him from using his ring. Not that Roy's very good with it yet anyway, but all the same, he seems to hit a button that warps them into a different universe, or in the bleed.
They're in the bleed, which is like the space between.
Yeah, in between, and then there's some like turbulence though, and it's like, wait, something just hit us, and then someone says, no, it's from the inside. And our big cliffhanger, after a little bit of fighting with Roy, who fights back, is that the prisoners on this particular ship have escaped their pods, and it's Jade, Power Girl, Wildcat, Atom Smasher, and I can't remember who that one at the back is, but
I can't either. It's really.
But I'm assuming it's another JSA related character because they're all JSA related characters.
Yeah, or Infinity Inc.
Or Infinity Inc. Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe more Infinity Inc. But which is still in itself related to JSA as a legacy thing.
It is, yeah.
So I think this is a smart cliffhanger in a couple of ways. In the one hand, it plays with your expectations a little bit because you find this ship, but then it's also the ship that's in space, but it's also probably the same type of ship that the others have been looking at that exploded. So a lot of these plot threads all of a sudden feel a lot more connected, but it plays with your expectations a little bit. But it also gives you this payoff to like the mystery of the last couple of issues, which has been, where is Jade? So getting to see her at the end of the issue, it doesn't explain everything in detail, but it's a nice broad stroke of like, hey, that thing that we've been like posing the question of for 2 issues here's your sort of basic answer, and we'll get into it more next time. So I think as far as like feeling like the story's progressing, this issue there's a lot to kind of pull the threads together. It still has that issue though where there's 4 artists, so the art is up and down, and
still like it's starting to come together, but it still definitely feels a bit fragmented, more than it probably should halfway through the story now. But it's not bad. Like a lot of the things that it's doing are interesting. I just kind of want more from each thing. It feels like there's too much going on in each issue for me.
I think I would probably agree with that a little bit in the last issue. I think this one, because all the threads do actually start to kind of tie up. Like, obviously, Barry's very separate, and that's just kind of your tease of what the villain's making Barry do. But everything else kind of links up. Maybe no, doesn't all meet each other necessarily, right? Obviously, you have Roy running into Jade as opposed to Alan and Todd, but
sure,
all of these things do have this through line now where there's something sort of linking them all, and it's the DEO at the center of it that's kind of connecting all these things together now. So for me, at the end of this issue, I'm like, because I've been enjoying all the things it's been teasing, and I'm like, okay, now I'm into the story, I'm into what it's doing. As a comic book, as a piece of artistry, because the art is so up and down, I can't just give it like a seal of like praise. But as a continuity enjoying event spectacle, moving things forward and teasing where things might go, I'm into what it's doing.
I'm into it as well for that stuff. I'd say still more for the potential more than anything it's actually doing, if that makes sense, because I don't think it's presented us with any really great ideas yet that, this is what we're going to capitalize on. It's more just we could play with some stuff.
If I was to make a guess, I would say that if anything, this will set up the good ideas, and the actual meat of the ideas will come in other books. That this is acts as a platform to launch a couple of other series that are going to be ongoings or something.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that feels like maybe we get, an Infinity Inc. thing, or maybe even this is how we get a regular JSA team ongoing again, and like this sets up a new lineup at the end of that. Very
possible. But no, digging the characters. It's nice to see some of these characters at the end. So I'm pleased with that. I think I just kind of like all the characters this is focusing on, because it's mostly staying away from the big A+ stars, right? It's mostly GSA related characters, or it's Roy, or it's whatever. Barry's the only one.
In some ways, it feels like a successor to 52.
Yeah.
In the idea of just we're focusing on the B listers and lower. Let's be honest. For that book, but obviously this is nowhere near the scope of that, being a 6-issue mini rather than a year-long weekly event. But just the idea of kind of we're kind of taking a backseat and kind of doing a little bit different focus.
Yeah, but the creative talent behind all this stuff seems a lot more impassioned, and maybe it's because they dodged the bullet of 5G and they're all excited about what they get to do now. But
that might be true. The more I see of 5G,
it feels like there's a direction in mind. That's Infinite Frontier issue 3. What are you giving the issue?
I'm going to give it a 7. I think it's pretty good. But I don't think I'm going any higher with the mixed art.
Yeah. I'll nudge up a bit. I'll say... No, I'll nudge up a full point. I'm going to go 8. I'm really into just this sense of like, the DC universe. Like, I just, it's really scratching an itch and being very solid at doing that. Like, yeah, I mean, from a technical point of view, the art is all over the place because it's 4 different artists. Because you see Zermanico, but then you see 3 other names, and you're like, well, and it's not that they're all bad, but it's a rough time because of all the switching.